This is the Paul Gough audio experience, business lessons for physical therapists. My name is Paul Gough, former professional soccer physical therapist turned successful business owner and best-selling author from the UK. Each week, we answer your questions and bring you an inspiring story or person from the global physical therapy community. This show is dedicated to sharing with you everything you need to know to become hugely successful in private practice. Thanks for joining me today. Now let the class begin. To another edition of the podcast / audio experience. I'm just going to share these. I'm just going to share this post out so that everybody can see what we're up to. Let me just do this. That should share post with the public. I should basically just check that that's gone on my personal feed as well, so that we are we're all over. Right, post, news feed. That should now be on my personal page, Macy, just to make sure that we've got as many people as we can about to listen. Can you just confirm that for me, Macy, if I shared that correctly? And then we'll get started. Give me 1 second, Sharif. I'll be with you.
Yeah, no worries.
This video. So it's saying, Macy. Oh, there we go. Share. Got it. Right. 1 second. News feed. Have to change. Post. Boom. Right, we're good. We're in the game.
Awesome.
We're live. All right. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. A very special edition of the podcast. We promised you when we relaunched the podcast that we would bring people from all over the world in the PT industry. We've got some fantastic guests lined up, and we've got not just PTs, we've got people who are providing services, vendors, people who are working on the ground floor, if you like, with physios who are understanding very closely, working even more closely with PT owners around the world. And today we're going to talk to a fantastic company that we've had the pleasure of getting to know through COVID, MWTherapy. Sharif is here to talk to us not just about what his software does and how ultimately they help businesses grow and streamline and become more productive, but I'm going to put Sharif on the spot. And I'm going to ask him what MWTherapy is doing at their business to adapt to everything that's gone over the last few years. So we're going to turn this into a very, very good business lesson, and we're going to stay in tune, if you like, with the core message of the podcast, which is business lessons for physical therapists. Before we do that, let me just remind everybody, if you are just coming into the podcast or you're just coming into the live stream, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube. This will be listened back by thousands of people on the podcast. We have this pretty big event coming up. We will be launching live for the first time ever, Private Practice Marketer Live, October the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. Check out the link. All of the details are at ppmlive2022.com. We're going to be in Orlando for the biggest event of the physical therapy profession's calendar. We're bringing to the stage two megastars. One is James Lawrence, who is the guy who is regarded as the world's toughest human. He did 50 triathletes in 50 days in 50 different states. Did you know that, Sharif? Did you know that?
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Check that
Sounds
out.
tiring.
50 triathletes, iron
Wow.
triathletes as well, by the way, which are iron triathlons in 50 states in 50 days. So the dude didn't sleep. He didn't, like, by the sounds of it, slept in, or if he did, he slept in cars or planes to get to the next point to run his next triathlon. So James Lawrence will be on stage with me in Orlando. We've got one other name. Currently, it's Mr. X, and we're not revealing the name of Mr. X. There are rumors, very strong rumors around the community, that we've got Harry Potter or Daniel Radcliffe. Somebody started a very vicious rumor that we might have Daniel Radcliffe live on our stage at the big event in October. Now, I cannot confirm or deny whether it is Daniel Radcliffe who will be at our big event in October, but his name is out there, and you might just have to show up in Orlando to find out for yourself whether or not Mr. X is indeed Daniel Radcliffe. So ppmlive22.com. Tickets are on sale. We've already sold the first batch. Every 10 we release, the price goes up. So make sure you head to the page and get your seat reserved for the big event in October. There will be 300 plus practices there. And if nothing else, it's Orlando in October. The margarita will flow. It will be a hell of a lot warmer than Boston, Sharif, that's for sure. So I hope
Yeah.
you guys are going to come on down to spend some time with us in Orlando in October. So
Yeah.
um, so let's get into it, right? We're going to talk about
Yeah.
how do we make a PT practice more efficient, more productive, more profitable, more streamlined, so that ultimately a business can be more successful. And that's really what this whole, that's what this whole conversation is about today over the next half an hour or 45 minutes. So tell us a little bit about you guys, MW
Yeah.
Therapy, a little bit about your background, how you got started, and then we'll
Sure.
dive into some questions about business and marketing and sales and what you're
Yeah.
seeing the trends are inside of the PT profession right now. Because you guys, if I stand corrected, 1,000 clinic owners around the world, you guys are dealing around the US, in Canada, that you guys are dealing with and working with right now. So you obviously have got a hell of a lot of insider information, if you like, as to what's working well inside of clinics, what isn't working well. So I'm excited for that discussion, as well as to find out a little bit more about
Yeah.
MW Therapy. Tell us. Over to you.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and it's nice to see everybody, so to say. And I'm glad to be here and have an opportunity to share a little bit. So, yeah, a little bit about a lot. So, MW Therapy, we've been in business now for about 18 years. We
Yep.
are based in Boston, up here on the East Coast. We are serving clients coast to coast here, Alaska and Hawaii, and so forth. And our clients really range in size. Some are very large, some are solo providers, some are cash, some are insurance, some are hybrid. And we kind of see a lot of different mixtures now. And that definitely is something that has evolved over the past couple of years, is one trend that we've certainly noticed. But one common theme is they're all outpatient. So our business is all about outpatient PT and serving the rehab space and so forth. And we're a cloud-based system and those sorts of things. And we endeavor to offer clients an all-in-one. And we do have some mutual clients here who work with you as well, Paul, which has been great to be part of the community and kind of get to know the community inside and out, and work with your team and work with some of the mutual customers that we have. So that's kind of a little bit about me. I've been in the space for that same 18 years, so I'm kind of been around for a while now, and have had the privilege personally to work with a lot of practices, as I think you have too, of course, directly working with practices, some that were startups, and then 3 years later they were monster practices.
Yeah.
And
Well. Yep.
it's always fun to be along for that ride. I'm a tech person, is kind of my background, and started in the fitness industry, and kind of with fitness tracking before wearables were kind of a thing, and evolved into the medical record space and the EMR practice management sort of space. So I've been around doing this for a while, which has given me a pretty good broad base of sort of working, like I said, with practices and experience, and really been able to see the ride. Nobody could have seen COVID coming, I think. So that's been an interesting run for all of us.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of a little background on us and myself in terms of what's going on in the business these days. Yeah, I try and answer that one. That's probably a 5-day symposium, right? But to try and summarize it a little bit, I mean, I think COVID was quite a shock. I don't think many practices necessarily were used to moving that fast, and so that was a huge challenge, was the speed you had to pivot. And that's not unique just to PT. I mean, every business. In our business, we were on schedules and timelines that we weren't necessarily accustomed to. Naturally, one of the biggest shifts was in the heat of it was to telehealth. I think most practices would agree that was one of the biggest shifts that had to be done sort of on the fly. And it was a wild time because most clinics didn't have infrastructure set up for telehealth. Insurances had no idea what they were doing in the US at the start in terms of how or whether they were going to cover telehealth. Even patients who were paying on a cash basis weren't necessarily used to, paying for telehealth. So big shift there. And I think, in our business, we brought telehealth to market pretty quickly in order to try and meet that. We were
Yep.
bolstering, different aspects of our system that previously weren't necessarily as heavily used. And so those were some of the kind of COVID changes that happened very quickly. Now we're kind of, you hesitate to say post-pandemic, but you're sort of moving beyond it. And it's interesting to see sort of what survived that end and what didn't. And I think that we've noticed, telehealth is certainly here to stay, but it's also receded to some degree with a lot of the practices that we work with. It was a great pivot. It was a necessary pivot, but it is physical therapy for a reason, and so physical
Yeah.
implies access, and so there are still some practices doing great business via telehealth, primarily, but I think many that can have brought, are bringing patients, of course, are back in the clinic and they're hands on with the patient again. So that's kind of, so the other thing, and I'll take a break in a moment here, is just, and we could talk about this in depth, is the new thing and the interesting intersection is the new trend now is challenges with staffing.
Yeah.
And so post COVID, right? COVID was a challenge because you got all these problems and you can't see people and you can't see your employees and you can't bring them in. So you're looking to technology to help kind of fill in some of those gaps. Now, post pandemic, we're bringing patients back in. They're in the business. They're in the practice. We're treating them. That's sort of normal. I'll put that in air quotes, whatever that means anymore. But now we have all these challenges. We can't get staff, or the staff we have, we can't get them to do everything we want them to do in the amount of time that we have. Just we're overly busy. Everybody's overtaxed. So again, we're back to technology. Like, how can we solve some of these problems?
Yeah.
And I think that's the trend that we're seeing now is, practices struggling with hiring or retention, if that's the case, and then trying to sort of, overcome those challenges and seek to take advantage of new opportunities that arise.
Yeah, I love that, and I've wrote a few things while I'm listening. I love what you said there. Start up to monster. I mean, what a great name for a product or a podcast or something that is. How do you go from start up to being a monster business? And I'd love to go there with you if we could.
Sure.
So you mentioned that there was two or three of these businesses that you've worked with that have gone from
Yeah.
a startup quite literally to a monster. And if I'm listening to this and I'm a startup or I'm halfway in between, assuming I want to be a monster. Let's just call it startup to big. Monster sounds a bit scary, but let's just say I want to be big. What do they have in common? What are they doing? What are those guys doing that perhaps the ones who are still stuck in startup mode aren't doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably the number one thing that I would say the owner or the founder has in common is they had a vision for what the practice was going to be. If I talk to 100 startups, 90 or so are going to say something like, hey, I'm starting this business up. I don't know, maybe in a few months, maybe I'll hire another PT, maybe I'll hire a PT. I'm not really sure. I'm going to kind of try and see everybody in my area. I'm not sure. I'll try and get patients from any
Yeah,
number of different referral sources. And, I plan to have a website and I think it'll be great. And then there'll be, 10 that will be a magnitude of an order of magnitude different. And there'll be two or three that will say, I'm starting on July 1st. I'm hoping that my volume will be this. These are my 5 top referral sources and what they're going to be. And then within 3 months, I expect my volume to be here and I'll have the finances to support hiring another PT or a PTA. And within 6 months, I'll be here, and within a year. And they just have this roadmap. And then once they get into it, the ones that really will be successful will be the ones who realize in 3 months this was right, and this was wrong. And this is what the 2 out of my 5 referral sources didn't work out the way I thought they would. So I had to pivot and I had to bring online or really chase down 2 more referral sources, and those ones worked. And that's how you go from 1 PT to 5 PTs, from 1 location to 3 locations to 5 locations.
yeah,
So I think that's the difference, really, and it's usually, it's a question of commitment and dedication and so forth. But having that plan and then assessing that plan often, and I know from talking to you and to Simon and so forth and others, I know that's something you preach heavily, objectively and subjectively assessing kind of where you are and where you want to go, and are you getting there or not?
I love it. Yeah, I love that, and I think that's what I've watched over the years. That um, it's it's very easy for people to speak growth and to speak ambition and to speak, I want to grow my business. I want to go from X to Y and I want to make Z instead of B. I want to make 200 grand next year instead of 100,000. And really, somewhere in the middle of that, there has to be an honest ambition, backed up by a robust plan. The phrase I use is always, if you can't make it work on paper, you'll never make it work in reality. And I think often people overestimate or underestimate probably the absolute basics of, like you say, commitment, desire, a plan, taking a day out to think about it. you could argue tools, and I'll be an advocate of what you guys do. There's no way on earth I could have grown. I'm in one of my practices now. I'm back in England for the summer, and I could not have got to full practices without software. I just could never in a million years. And even if I took it that further, and I'm sure you'll probably experience this, it's not just software, it's actually using the software and like understanding how to use the software rather than just buying it or getting it and thinking, great, I've got this thing now, I've got this tool, which it is a tool. But I always think that, something like what you guys do, it's a hammer. Like you got to hit it. Okay, so we've got the hammer. Now, how do we just go to the nth degree of understanding what this hammer can do for us to help us to scale, whether it's understanding the metrics reports or the email system or the patient notifications, text messages, whatever. How do we do all of this to ultimately help us streamline the business? And I think that's certainly been in my experience is that absolutely the commitment. Have you got a plan, and can you stick to it even when it gets tough? And are you open to the resources and actually being willing to invest in the resources? That could be people, it could be software, being around smart people, masterminds, whatever. So many people are trying to do this on their own, and it's almost impossible. And if you haven't got the right tools or resources around you, it makes it very, very difficult to do it. On the banner, on the conversation of streamlining, then, because I'm so pleased again you've brought up challenges with people. I've been preaching this now for about 6 months, and if you listen back to my podcasts, I did a podcast that basically went head into the labour shortage that's happening around the world. And I think that I'm in Britain right now, but I live in America, and it's funny when I come back to Britain, they all think that there is no staff in Britain, right? And then wherever we are, it's like there's no staff in Hartlepool, and then I go to Florida, and there's no staff in Florida, and there's a staff
Right.
shortage. I'm employing, believe it or not, finance people, so accountants right now for a new division I've got in my company, and I speak to other accountants, and they say, "Oh, you can't get any staff. There's no staff in accountants. There's no staff in reception. There's no staff in catering." I'm like, can we just remove all that shit and just say there's no staff? Like,
Yeah.
there's just no people. There's a genuine labor shortage, and there's this horrible situation where there's lots of money around but not enough people to produce the output, if you like. And it's going to be with us for a long, long time. Even the recession might not slow it down. That's coming headlong. So you brought this up. This is obviously a global thing. It's happening across the PT profession. What are the best practices then to let's say streamline and become more efficient and be more productive with less people? If payroll's the biggest risk and the biggest challenge right now, what are the ways around it are to still be able to grow the practice?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and I couldn't agree more. It's top of mind. So there's a couple things. First thing is, first question is sort of assessing what do you really need in terms of staffing, and what can you possibly live without, or you can't live without. And that's something I think a lot of practices are having more conversations about now. So for years and years, the paradigm was very simple. You have PTs, then you have a front desk, and that has a person at the desk, and then now you have a billing team, and that has 1 to 2 people, and then there's an auth person. And that's the paradigm. It's everybody does it. It's very similar. If you talk to 100 practices, 98 would say that their team looks the same.
Yeah.
Today, I think, and again, COVID, this is where this ramp kind of goes, is that conversation changed was, well, it's funny, we didn't have anybody at the front desk for 6 months. What happened, right? They're just not because of staffing at the time, but because of COVID and distancing and all those things. We just didn't have anybody. So what happened? And I think what happened is a lot of practices ended up with new workflows that they didn't have before. And I think the connection to today is if you can't get the staff, you have to redefine your workflow, or you have to get the staff. And if you have to get the staff, you have to pay more for them. And then you have to consider whether your numbers still work. So for example, I just talked to a practice last week, and one thing they've done is they've basically largely eliminated the front desk position, right? They just don't have anybody there anymore. Then what they're doing to fill that gap is they're using virtual check-in, which is a product that we offer. But that's sort of an aside, is they're having patients essentially check themselves in using their phone, and they can answer the same questions that they would do if there was a person, has your insurance changed? Is there anything you want your PT to know, et cetera? Is this the answer for every practice? No, of course not. Every practice has different physical layouts, different operational parameters. Others may be increasing their number of front desk staff. But the point is that the intersection, just like any business, is if you look at a factory where they're making something, they're going to say, how many staff do we really need? What processes can we automate or change? And that's where the streamlining comes in. And I think one of the biggest opportunities right now is that patients, you can actually offload work to patients. So by having patients book themselves, by having patients do virtual check-in, they're actually doing work for you, work that has to get done. And the amazing thing about it is they love to do it. So most patients expect a modern patient experience today. They want to do stuff on their phone. They want to jump on their iPad and do it on the couch. They want to do it 24/7, which you're never going to be able to staff for. So I think there are opportunities here to redefine some of the workflows and to integrate more technology into them. And in the end, it's not, it's streamlining and efficiency. It's also patient experience, which, is paramount as well.
I love it. The thinking is what I think is crucial here. It's we all look to immediate a new piece of software, a new marketing strategy, a new deal with an insurance company. We always look for like an external. And I always think the way out of these problems is to think our way out of the problems. And it's funny, I was talking to a clinic recently up in Philadelphia, and they had 5 or 6 staff, front desk staff. Classic, can't find staff, and the ones who I can find want ridiculous amounts of money. I said, okay, have you thought about South Africa? And he said, what do you mean? I said, it's just there's probably about, I don't know, 1 billion people down there, right? I'm exaggerating, but there's a hell of a lot of people who want this job, and you've got 5 or 6 people. Do you really need 5 or 6 in the office? Like, I get it, you need 3 or 4, maybe, but do we need 5 or 6? Is there even space for 5 or 6? Why aren't we even considering, right? And this was where I left it. I'm not saying go and hire somebody in South Africa. I'm saying that none of us are even considering these types of things, and we should be now because of the way we've evolved and what COVID proved to us that could happen in a business. And like you said, it's right for some, it's not right for others. But when you're staring down the barrel at a $50,000 salary, which is inefficient for the role, the pricing model, the rate that the insurance company will reimburse this business, it is going to force radical thinking. And it might be that radically thinking about this situation says go hire 2 in South Africa at the top end of the pay scale who want $20,000 and are overpaid according to their economy, right? They're not underpaid, they're actually overpaid according to their economy, who can do just as good of a job and extremely grateful for the work and want to be part of your community, but it's all just done over Wi-Fi. It's all just done on the internet. Why isn't that being considered now in some practices? Now, again, it's not for everybody, but that might be the way that some of the businesses listening to this go and find 50 or $60,000 and hit their margins straight away. It could be that this is the way we have to go with virtual check-ins. And I think, even as I hear that, if I'd have heard that 3 or 4 years ago, I'd have said, no way, not in my clinic. And I'm telling you right now, I'm going, yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it, because even the prospect of a virtual front desk, like I said, I'm sat in my clinic right now. The thought of nobody in that reception, I'm watching patients coming and go out there, would have horrified me 3 years ago. But I've been shaken up, literally. My thought process now has had to evolve. That does everybody have to have somebody every time? What if 70% of the time and the other 30 is virtual? I can still run a very effective practice. The people who want the receptionist know when the receptionist is going to be there. The people who like the streamline, don't want to talk, just come in, get their coffee, check themselves in, and go for treatment. What if that's actually the way that I can find $50,000 extra profit in my business? And really, I'm not doing anything more except changing the view of it by hearing things like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I want to re-emphasize there is, you don't have to change everything about your practice all at once, but you have
Yeah,
to entertain these discussions and figure
exactly.
out. So, there are radical ideas, and then there are radical ideas you do as a part of your business in a percentage, right, which allows you to temper that change. And it's a question of just division of resources. So the person who's not at the front desk can now, say, be doing another task that is making you more money, and is more effective for
Exactly.
you than sitting there and talking to patients as they come in. It could allow you to keep your practice open, say 1 or 2 nights a week until 8 p.m. And between, say, 5 and 8 p.m., there is no receptionist, and that's your test bed.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
do it for 3 months, and then you assess patient satisfaction. You get feedback live from patients. Here's what I liked, or I didn't like coming in and not seeing somebody, or, oh yeah, it was fine, I didn't even notice. And like you said, not only are businesses having this conversation, but the patient mindset has changed too. I mean, I think that is something that will last post-COVID. Is, everybody already knew about Amazon, and you do one click and it comes the next day. That was sort of old news. But the acceptance of technology, willingness to DIY, do it yourself as a patient, has exploded. And it's almost to the point now where it's expected. So what do you mean I can't book online 24/7? What do you mean I have to call somebody? I don't want to talk to anybody. I mean, if you talk to people that give you their smartphone, all their work is going to be online, right? They're not calling anymore. It's a phone second and it's everything else first. So, it's just, these are opportunities too. They're not just challenges, but they're opportunities. And, it is about margin and what can you make and what can you take and what can you live with and without. And then if you can't get the staff, then you're just right there in the same position.
It's interesting. I love what you're thinking. It's very much on my wavelength of even just challenging the thought. I did this as well. I mean, obviously I consult with businesses all day, and I proposed this. It was first to a client in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, wherever it was, and then I proposed it to a clinic owner in California. And at that point, he was like, "Well, I don't know if I want to go that far." But we settled on Texas, right? We settled on Texas because of the obvious difference between a front desk in California, random numbers wanting $60,000, and somebody in Texas wanting $40,000, where the payroll tax is probably 7% versus 22% in California, and all the other crap that people have to put up with in terms of running a business in California. The difference would be $20,000 to $25,000 in that business owner's bank account. So I stretched him to South Africa and he settled on Texas. I stretched him to $50,000 saving and he settled on a $25,000 saving. And often, when I talk, I do go extreme on purpose, because if I can get somebody to come back and go, at least if you entertain the idea that there is streamlined process available, there is ways to automate things, there is ways to get virtual check-in. What if it's just 3 hours a day? Okay, well, let's try that rather than 12 hours a day. And I think that's the person that will make progress in the next 3 to 5 years, because me included, have been stuck on certain must do this, must do the other. And it's like, well, Paul, that got you the first 10 years of your business, but it might not get you the next 10.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some tasks that are very well suited for remote work, that are repetitive and things like that, like authorizations and things like that, where it makes sense. And yeah, the world is just, it's much bigger and much smaller at the same time. You can hire somebody in a different state and you can work with them and they're virtual, but and you can measure their efficiency and what they're doing. And if the auths are all on point and they're good, then it's working. And if you're paying a lower rate because you're taking advantage of different labor markets that you couldn't take advantage of before, it's more icing on the cake. And then if you can take that 25 grand and plow it back into the practice to make more money on something productive, then it's just like a snowball. And that goes back to, how do you go from being small to being big? Is you take the 25 grand and you put it into something. Maybe it's marketing, maybe it's whatever, and then that comes back to you twofold, and it's a double win, because you're more efficient, so you're making more money, but the money's then productive for you in a different way.
Love it. So tell us a little bit about your software then. Tell us a little bit about what it does, and ultimately, because that's you got 1,000 customers now, right? And when you told me that, I was like, oh, wow, that's like, this is not just a let's get this thing started and get it moving.
Yeah.
There's obviously a lot of people trust you, and you're doing great things. What's
Yeah.
so good? Why so many people kind of heading over
Yeah.
to MWTherapy now?
Yeah, so we started off really as an EMR only, about 15, 18 years ago, and we were delivering at the time what the needs were, which were really, I need to write my notes, and that was the big change at the time. And we helped many practices go from paper to electronic. What's happened over the years is an evolution, right? Our product has evolved, and now we have an all-in-one. So we're bringing to the market today demographics and documentation and scheduling and billing. And billing encompasses both insurance and as well as cash pay, and even hybrid, being able to track both. We have a full suite of practice management and reporting. So we have a very complete product. And I think that's a big draw for a lot of practices. I sort of need as few systems to work out of as possible. One is the best. And what's interesting about that is that, if you go around to our competitors and, everybody's an all-in-one now, except, are they really? And so one thing that I think a lot of clients like about us is we've grown organically, meaning that we've built our own product in-house. We haven't grown our product by acquiring other businesses or integrating with other products. Integration's never as good as having it in the same. It's like a PT practice bringing in a contractor every once in a while. It's not the same as having that person, that's your service, that's your product. So that's definitely a big draw. I'd say of late, some of the most interesting and exciting areas for us and our clients and prospects would be, continuing to build on our customizability. So being able to change documentation, templates in particular to meet the different needs of practices. A lot of practices are into niches now. We're a niche practice into this. We're focused on this is our target market. We want marathon runners, or we want the guy you mentioned who did 50 tries. So how do you reflect that without using a cookie cutter? And then lastly is really patient-facing tools, which we've talked about a lot today. That is hugely important right now to practices, and therefore it's hugely important to us. And same goes with marketing, automating marketing. And the EMR is it's the central piece. If you looked at a practice's tech stack, you would see the EMR would be in the middle. And that's really just how so your EMR knows who your patients are. It knows who your PTs are. It knows what's happening to the patient and when it's happening to them. It provides a hub in a way that other businesses would look to, like a CRM, to know what's happening with a patient, or with a client, but we have that. So being the hub, and being able to kick off automated emails to patients for marketing purposes, being able to do newsletters, things like that. A lot of the things I know you talk about. So those are some areas, and that's a little bit about us and why clients are coming to us, why they're switching to us from other systems. And of course, we do offer our product at a good price, and that never hurts too. And so being an affordable option is also nice as well. So that comes some of the highlights, and what are people talking about, and as you'll see, we're mirroring our business, of course, to what the needs are of those practices out there.
Who then specifically you targeting? People US, UK, like who do you get the
Yeah,
most results for?
yeah,
Who's the most
yeah, yeah,
uh, responsive, shall we call them, PT
yeah.
practice owner out there for you guys?
Yeah, so definitely, we're in the outpatient space. That was a conscientious decision. We don't want to serve skilled nursing in hospitals and so forth. We're mostly in the U.S., although we do have some international and have had some international clients, and we certainly welcome them. Obviously, we're U.S. focused with
Yeah,
insurance and things like that are specific. Our typical customer, yeah, would be an outpatient PT practice anywhere across the spectrum, from that solo practice to that multi-location, potentially multi-state practice. I think that the prototypical customer is typically going to have between 2 and 10 PTs is very common range you see, and have 1 to 3 locations, something like that. So that's generally what we find. But we love to work with any outpatient. We were happy to work with you when you're small and you're growing, or if you're small and that's your goal and you're hitting your goal, that's okay too. So we really, that outpatient rehab is our home. That's where we live.
how long does it take to get started with you? I'm interested, and I want to move
Yeah.
across. What's the ramp up time?
We launch most accounts within 3 business days, so it's very fast. We have so these days most clients are switching from another system because the days of I have nothing and I'm coming from paper are
Yeah,
over. So we have some excellent best practices and ways to help you transition and make that switch. And that's something we talk about a lot with clients. How can we move data? How can we get your staff ramped up? How can we make this as smooth as possible? So it's very quick, and I think a lot of people, they start to feel heartburn about switching EMRs, but we do make it easy. And you can't be hindered by your system anymore. So it's costing you more than the cost. If you're worried about switching and, oh, it's giving me all these worries, what's the cost of staying with a system that isn't working with you or that you can't implement efficiently? That's a long-term cost you're bearing. So a little bit of short-term work to get a switch done is worth it. And again, today in 2022, it's a lot easier to switch systems than it was in, say, 2010, when everything was more nascent.
yeah, I love it. What I will say is you guys have been great to have around, and of all of the partnerships that we've created over the last few years with external vendors, whether it's software or whether it's orthotics or whether it's just stuff, equipment, machinery for inside of the practice, clinical education courses. Um, you guys have been an absolute pleasure to work with, and the response from the people within the community has been terrific. So I can only
Awesome.
say well done for that, and wholeheartedly put my kind of endorsement, if you like, behind it, primarily because of that. And I think, subjectively, we will all argue that our software is the best and all our service, coaching, marketing skills are the best. And that's very easy for us to do that. But ultimately, I love listening to what the customer says about, the vendors that we bring to Planet Paul. And you guys are right up there with what you've, promised and what you've delivered, if you like. So well done, and thanks for that.
Yeah.
My last question, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
I'm currently with another software provider, right? And I'm
Okay.
loving the sound of all of this. What's the one reason I should at least reach out and talk to you, Sharif? Not buy.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
reach out and talk. What would be the one reason I should do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is you've got nothing to lose. So you pick up the phone, you have a demo with us, you spend 20 minutes, you eat your lunch while you're doing it, and you get a sense of what else is out there. And if it's been for many practices, it has been 8 to 10 years since they last looked at this.
Yeah,
So there was a big, lot of changing over between 2009 and 2012 into EMR from paper. And so now people are hitting 10 years, right? Many of them hitting 10 years. We talk to clients every day. Gosh,
yeah,
I haven't been out in the
yeah,
market for a while. I have no idea.
yeah,
And it ranges. Some say absolutely hate my system now. Others say, it's working. I don't know. I don't know. We haven't really thought about it, right? So think about it. 20 minutes. It's kind of, I laugh. It's like the Geico. 15 minutes could save you
yeah, yeah,
15% on your. It's the same thing. 15 minutes could save you money on your EMR. You could get the same price and get a better product. You could rev up marketing. You could take some of the stuff they're learning from you and actually implement it in an easier way.
yeah.
I mean, so nothing to lose, and just take a look and see what else is out there. And I think more and more practices are like, wow, I had no idea this was even
You could
something
do
that
all of it.
anybody was offering. So great, we're in. And so you got nothing to lose, so why not
Yeah,
give us a shot, give us a listen. You can eat your lunch on Zoom and listen to us for 20 minutes in a live demo, and just get a flavor for what else is out there.
I love it. I think as well, my little kind of insight on these types of things, I try not to go with the cheapest, right? And I honestly don't know what your price is versus somebody else. I'm more probably speaking now to the listeners. When I choose any software or anything, I don't necessarily go for whatever the price is that it costs me per month. $100, $200 for whatever. I'm not really interested in that. It's what can I make as a result of using it, and that's the piece I think that you guys have got. If people do give you a chance to have a conversation about what they can do, because you're very right about the. I'm scratching my head thinking how long has it been since we reviewed our EMI. You're probably on the right track there. And it's funny because Kayla, who runs my physio business in here, she's like, we need to change. We need to. And I'm like, okay, cool, right? Let's start. Um, let's start the conversation. And I think what I would be open to, I would want people to consider when they talk to you is whatever the price is, it's irrelevant. It's what can I make as a result of using it? Because the $100 or $50 that might be on the credit card at the end of the month is nothing in comparison to having some kind of communication that is used regularly to reach out to patients, whether it's saving money on virtual check-ins, whether it's sending out emails for marketing purposes, text messages for reminders, asking for referrals. Like these things are just worth tens of thousands of dollars to us, and we should never be looking really for the cheapest. It should always be the best when it comes to the EMR or your sales and marketing software, whatever it is that you're doing. I just think that's the mindset to have, and personally, that's the customer I want for my business. It isn't this coaching program's $50 cheaper than the one around the corner. That's just irrelevant. It's ultimately how much can you make if you do even half of what we say to do. What do you stand to make? And ultimately, I think that's the real angle that your customers should come, or anybody that's listening to my podcast, I would want them to come to you for, not to save $50. It's actually, I'm not in. I will often say this to my clients: I'm not interested in saving you $50. I'm trying to make you 50 grand. And that's a different view of the world that a lot of people have. It's like, oh, let's save 50 bucks, let's save 50. But it's like, fuck that. Like, let's just focus on making 50 grand, right? If we
Yeah.
look after the pounds, the pennies are irrelevant. Rather than let's look after the pennies and the pounds look after themselves. I prefer the idea that if we look after the pounds, the pennies are fucking irrelevant, right? And that's the mindset to bring to these conversations with the likes of yourself. So I hope people who are listening to this come at you with that view. And almost I want them to come on and say, look, all right, you've got 20 minutes with me. Show me how I'm going to make more money using your software than I am right now. Bang.
Right
And what
on.
a great 20-minute, half an hour conversation that will be. And I think anybody, thousands of people listening to this, must be open to at least 20 minutes to say, don't tell me how I can save $42 or some sales tax or whatever. Just help me understand how I can make an extra 50, 60, 70, 80 grand by being more efficient, by being more streamlined and being more productive in my company that might also ease the burden on payroll. And I think that has got to be worth 20 minutes of time with you guys.
We certainly think so, and ROI is the name of the game. So,
I mean, you can bring
get
me in
out.
as a sales.
Yeah.
I could be your sales guy if you
You're
want.
hired.
Is there a job in
Absolutely.
your sales department that I could get behind your software? I do. I think it's amazing, as you can tell in
Absolutely. So if you
my
sign up
story.
for a demo, Paul will be doing the demo with you. We can promise you that here. So
They won't.
please.
No, they won't, because they'll be frightened in case they sell them all. No, no, no. It's on a serious note. That's the mindset. And look, the people who listen to my podcast, they are different and they're very growth orientated. And I would rather them come and talk to you about help me make more money. Like the accountant's job is to save them $50 by cutting loads of shit. Like that's not what we do. It's like, how do we grow this business? That's the difference. Yeah.
And I hope you don't mind. Let me just plug this real quick. So we're MWTherapy.com, of course, and we're on Twitter as our biggest social media. There you go, at MWTherapy, and Facebook too, if you like that. And that's where you can actually book a demo. And if you're interested, or just to learn more about our product, we also have a nice blog where we talk about a lot of outpatient PT topics, similar to some of the stuff we've talked about today: staffing, compliance, marketing, finances. And so we'd want to invite you to just check us out if you have a moment.
Fantastic. Is that the link to go to for the demo?
Yeah, it's you can get there from there, but also just MWTherapy.com, of course, our website would be the best place, and there's a demo link right at the top.
Fantastic. I'm going to ask anybody who's listening to, when they do book a demo, to challenge you guys. So I want whoever is listening to this to say, okay, you've got me. You've got 20 minutes. Show me how to make at least 20 grand using your software that I'm not making with my current software. So there's the Geico challenge. It's the MWTherapy USP has changed. In 20 minutes or less, how to make 20 grand or more using MWTherapy that you're not making using your current crappy software provider. There you go. How's about that?
It's perfect. We accept the challenge.
Sharif, run that by your legal department and see if we can get away with it. The lawyers will be itching. They'll be like, oh shit, we can't say that.
Yeah, they'll love it. They'll love it. I'll get right on with them after this.
I love it. No, amazing. Honestly, we do. We love you guys, and thanks for everything. It's been a great discussion. I love, again, confirmation of the people problem, but just really the big thing for me from this podcast is the shift in thinking. It's ultimately our thinking that gets us out of trouble, explores opportunities, and if if you've got money at the end of the month or at the end of the year, you've had a good year. It's not because of what you did; it's what precedes that. It's because of how you thought. And I just love some of the discussions that we've had today about the possibility, if you like, of slightly evolving the practice. Doesn't necessarily need a complete overhaul, but just evolving the practice to move towards where the trends are headed, not necessarily what we're behind us.
Right on. It was great to talk to you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Sharif, you're amazing. We'll see you again soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Yeah. See you later. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.